What if you could see the world through Quentin Tarantino's eyes? A cinematic junkie who consumes reels like the rest of us consume breakfast. But here's the thing. Tarantino doesn't just watch movies. He studies them, reveres them, builds his own masterpieces from the bones of the films that blew his mind. So when Tarantino says, "These are the movies you have to watch to truly understand cinema," you better believe they're worth your time. From gritty spaghetti westerns to explosive martial arts flicks, razor-sharp comedies to war-torn fever dreams, here are the 15 films Quentin Tarantino says you must watch before you die. Let's dive in. Tarantino starts his list with a bang. Or should we say, a blade. Switchblade Sisters, 1975. Directed by Jack Hill. It's raw, raucous, and gloriously a gang of high school girls, led by the fierce Lace and her rebellious sidekick, Maggie, battle betrayal, violence, and the patriarchy in leather jackets. Tarantino calls it a grindhouse gem. A film he loved so much, he re-released it himself through Rolling Thunder Pictures in the 90s. For him, it's a perfect storm of female empowerment, pulp violence. Then there's Django, 1966. The original blood-soaked spaghetti western by Sergio Corbucci is brutal, muddy, relentless. Franco Nero drags a coffin behind him, filled with vengeance, and Tarantino eats it up. This is the movie that redefined the western for him. Not clean-cut cowboys, but muddy men with broken moral compasses. And when Tarantino made Django Unchained, he didn't just borrow the name, he paid homage, casting Nero in a cameo and weaving the soul of the original into every frame. Yes, even the king of Grindhouse bows to Spielberg. Jaws, 1975. It's not just a shark movie, it's tension, character, and structure, all wrapped in saltwater dread. Tarantino calls it one of his favorite films of all time. And not because of the monster, but because Spielberg showed how to stretch suspense like a rubber band, snap it, then stretch it again. Think of the tavern scene in Inglourious Bastards, or the dinner table in The Hateful Eight. That's slow burn terror, that's Jaws in Tarantino's bloodstream. Then comes his girl, Friday, 1940. Directed by Howard Hawks. A screwball comedy with machine gun dialogue and enough chemistry to light up New York. Tarantino says it's a masterclass in verbal choreography, Cary Grant, Rosalind Russell, sparks flying, the kind of banter that makes Tarantino's own scripts, from Jackie Brown to Pulp Fiction, feel like fencing matches in a war of words. Stephen King's first novel, Brian De Palma's Bloody Canvas, split screens, slow motion, that unforgettable prom scene. Tarantino borrowed all of it. Sometimes, literally, for Kill Bill, Death Proof, and more. Carrie's meltdown wasn't just cinematic, it was operatic, and Tarantino was listening. And then, another Howard Hawks classic, Rio Bravo, 1959. This isn't just a western. It's a hangout movie. John Wayne, Dean Martin, Ricky Nelson, all holed up in a jailhouse, cracking jokes and sipping coffee while the world burns outside. Tarantino calls it the blueprint. The reason Jackie Brown and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meander and breathe. He doesn't want plot, he wants company. When modern mastery meets old school grit, Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, 2017. Tarantino says it's the second best film of the entire 2010s. Why? Because it's pure cinema. No backstories, no monologues, just ticking clocks, screaming engines, and boats sinking in real water. No CGI. Tarantino loves that Nolan went backward to move forward, using real planes, real ships, and real terror. It's survival, not spectacle. Then comes the Titan, the good, the bad, and the ugly, 1966. Sergio Leone's masterpiece. Tarantino calls it one of the 3 most influential films of his life. Wide shot, long silences, close-ups so tight you feel the sweat, and Morricone's score. It changed how Tarantino thought about sound. Years later, he hired Morricone for The Hateful Eight, and the legend finally got his Oscar. Now we step into madness and mayhem. Apocalypse Now, 1979. Francis Ford Coppola didn't just make a war movie, he made a descent into hell. Tarantino watches it and sees how silence can be louder than gunfire, how shadows and sweat can speak louder than dialogue. Think Spawn Ranch in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The dread, the waiting, the dog walking across the screen. That's Coppola whispering in Tarantino's ear. Then there's The Street Fighter, 1974. Sonny Chiba as a brutal, no-nonsense martial arts assassin. No mercy, no slow-motion kicks, just bones breaking. This wasn't Bruce Lee. This was something darker. Tarantino loved it so much, he wrote it into True Romance, and later cast Chiba in Kill Bill as the legendary swordmaker Hattori Hanzo. It was full circle. With a katana, here come the rebels and the slackers. The Great Escape, 1963. Steve McQueen, James Garner, Donald Pleasance, escaping from a Nazi POW camp with style and swagger. Tarantino says this is why he made Inglourious Basterds. Not to mimic, but to honor. Even Rick Dalton in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood gets digitally inserted into a scene. For Tarantino, The Great Escape is more than a war movie, it's mythology. Then there's Dazed and Confused, 1993, Richard Linklater's hangout classic. No real plot, just kids, cars, joints, and the last day of school in 76. Tarantino says this is the kind of movie you live in, not just watch. Like Jackie Brown or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where time slows, music plays, and characters just are. From martial arts grit to New York darkness, The Protector, 1985, Jackie Chan's gritty, American action flick, didn't get much love when it came out, but Tarantino stepped in years later and gave it a second life, slapping his seal of approval on it through the Tarantino Presents home video series. For him, it's not about polish, it's about energy, authenticity, and choreography. He wants to keep the underdogs alive. Then comes The Heavyweight Taxi Driver, 1976. Scorsese, De Niro, Travis Bickle spiraling into madness. Tarantino calls it maybe the greatest character study ever filmed. He doesn't just love the story. He loves how we become Travis, how the camera becomes his eyes, how we descend with him. You talking to me? That scene isn't just acting, it's immersion, and Tarantino takes notes. Last but not least, a film that drips with sweat and dread. Sorcerer, 1977. William Friedkin's overlooked must for desperate men. 2 trucks, a jungle road filled with explosives. Tarantino calls it a white-knuckle experience. A film so intense you feel it in your bones. Roy Scheider leads the way, a man running from himself, tasked with hauling death on wheels. Every plank creaks, every bridge sways, every inch forward feels earned. Friedkin shot it all for real, in brutal locations, and Tarantino sees in it the power of pure cinema. No CGI, no fakery, just fear, mud, and tension wound, tighter than dynamite. So there you have it, 15 films. 15 windows into the cinematic mind of Quentin Tarantino. Some are loud, some are quiet. Some you've seen, others you've never even heard of. But all of them shaped the director who reshaped modern cinema. Which one's your favorite? Which have you never seen, but now must? Let us know in the comments. And if this journey through Tarantino's favorites inspired you, hit that like button, share the video, and don't forget to subscribe. Because in a world full of movies, sometimes it takes a director like Tarantino to show us where to look.